I saw you guys just like grow exponentially within a short period of time. What do you think, what could you attribute to some of that success and growth?
So we had to invest in some coaching, and that was 8-figure firm, which everything took off after that. Had to take on some debt that none of us would have been comfortable with without speaking to a coach, but putting that money into marketing. And really, I think the biggest thing was entrusting other people to handle cases. Getting other people to do the work so that we could be out trying to get more business was critical.
Welcome to Spaghetti on the Wall, where we throw ideas, see what sticks, and nurture those that do. I'm your host, Armando, an actor, entrepreneur, and coach, giving you insights that light up your world. We're here to explore the realms of business, marketing, and life, serving up a shot of inspiration with every episode. Ready to make ideas stick and grow them into something great? Let's dive in.
Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, depending on when you are consuming this podcast. Ladies and gentlemen, Spaghetti on the Wall, back with another one. Stacey Isaacs, how are you?
I'm good. I like that intro.
You like it?
Yeah.
I think you're like, guess you might be 202, 203 when this comes out.
That's my lucky number.
Is it?
I'm kidding. Wouldn't that be cool?
It would be awesome.
Yeah.
It'd be awesome. Do you have a lucky number?
Yeah, it's 7 though, kind of basic.
7. Do you see it often?
Well, it's my birthday, but then my second daughter, since it was a scheduled C-section, I got to choose the date, so she's 7/7.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I just like that number.
July what?
7th.
Oh, you are 7/7.
She's July 7th. I'm December 7th.
December 7th. Okay. Capricorn.
Sagittarius.
Oh, you're Sagittarius.
Yeah.
Do you believe in that stuff?
Not really, do you?
It's fun to talk about, but no, I'm not making life-changing decisions
No, and
based on horoscope.
I don't believe it because it says Sagittarians love adventure, and I'm the person that's afraid of everything. So.
Are you?
Yeah.
I don't believe. Well, you can't own a business if you're afraid of everything.
Well, I mean things like, let's say phobias, like elevators. Very scared of elevators. I could never be that person. Like, I don't zip line because I'm always assessing risk in my head.
Are you?
Rides. I don't do roller coasters.
Yeah,
I think in terms of all the accidents.
Yeah, I don't like it like when it like flips me upside down. You know, I don't do that anymore. I used to all the time. So Stacey Isaacs runs a super successful law firm down here in Fort Lauderdale. I love Fort Lauderdale, by the way, or Coral Springs. Is this considered Fort Lauderdale?
We're actually in Parkland at the moment.
Oh, we're in Parkland.
We are, but we are very close to Coral Springs, and Fort Lauderdale would be about 40 minutes from here.
Right. So you guys run this work injury rights law firm, and we've been working together for a while. It's so funny, or not funny, but like it's interesting to find businesses that are in this space of helping people on like their worst day, right? And you guys, how do you like choose to do this, right? To be like, okay, yeah, this is what we're doing as a living. I mean, I can't imagine this is something that like you always planned. We just kind of fell into it, right?
That's exactly what happened. When I got out of law school, which was in New Jersey, I moved down to Florida, so I had basically no ins at any firm. At the time, I always thought I wanted to do family law, custody, divorces, and I just could not.
Sounds awful.
I know, but it sounded good at the time, and it sounded all about helping people, and I just could not get an interview at any of these places. I had no connections. And I started working for a personal injury lawyer just by chance, maybe for like 2 months. And I met an attorney when I was there. The attorney was at a deposition on the other side, so he was representing the insurance company, and he said, I really think you would like workers' comp. You should try to get a job with Liberty Mutual, where I work. They have a whole workers' comp department. I think you'll really like it. And so I literally fell into workers' comp, but it turned out to be something that I really liked. However, I was on the other side for a long time. So I started to get jaded working for the insurance company because I did see a lot of fraudulent claims, and I started to really hate it. And when we opened up this firm, I was switching sides, and this side has been a lot more rewarding because you are helping people. Helping the insurance company, it did not bring me any personal joy.
Yeah.
Saving them a couple bucks. But being on this side and helping people, they're calling on their very worst day, and seeing it through to the end is rewarding.
Yeah. So you started working with your husband.
I started that 10 years ago. Yeah.
And then you guys got married. How did that, tell me, give me the love story.
No, what happened was we each had our respective jobs when we got married. We got married in September. In March, I got laid off. So we were newlyweds, and I was working for a big insurance company, and they essentially laid off the whole department. And I was basically at a crossroads because at that age, I was already 40, was I going to go work for someone else doing insurance defense? You're kind of capped out at what you can earn. And it was really David's brainchild. He said, I think you should just switch sides, start your own thing. And it was scary, but it was totally worth it. And then he left his job, and so did William Harrow. And we were at a dining room table saying, okay, guys, here we are. How do we make money? How do we get cases? And it was born from that.
It's when somebody opens up their own business, not attorneys, right? I'm talking about just like straight up opening up a business. It's such you don't know if you're going to get cases, or you don't know if you're going to get business. But you guys felt like you guys could get cases, right? Like, how did you guys, from a starting position, what were you guys doing to get cases? I mean, knocking on doors, referrals?
Literally, I was afraid to sign a year lease at a space. It was one of those executive suites where, it looks like you have a reception, but it's all these people renting suites. I remember her wanting me to sign for a year. Said, can I do month to month? I don't know if I'm going to get any cases. We really didn't know. It was a complete risk, but we knew if it didn't work out, we have a profession. We can go work anywhere. There were people that said, oh, good luck to them. Like, how are they going to get cases? How did we do it? I looked on the Florida bar. I looked for all of the personal injury lawyers. I wrote down their names. I reached out to them. Hey, can I take you to lunch? And I built some relationships with people that to this day, 10 years later, they are still referring cases. But we didn't buy somebody else's firm. We had no cases. It was what you would call, I guess, grassroots marketing. We didn't have the money to do digital marketing, Google. It was pretty crazy looking back at it.
And so you guys start building the cases. How did you guys, because I saw you guys just like grow exponentially within a short period of time. What do you think, what could you attribute to some of that success and growth?
So we had to invest in some coaching, and that was 8-figure firm, which everything took off after that. Had to take on some debt that none of us would have been comfortable with without speaking to a coach, but putting that money into marketing. And really, I think the biggest thing was entrusting other people to handle cases. At first, David, William, we thought nobody's going to make this kind of money that we are for us. But getting other people to do the work so that we could be out trying to get more business was critical.
And so the marketing was the thing that you guys went into debt for that ultimately grew the business?
Yes, because you can only go there's only so many personal injury lawyers that were willing to dole out cases to us. And then when you do have those, you have to pay a referral fee, which, of course, we wouldn't have had the case without them, so we don't begrudge them any referral fees, but it's less in our pockets. So it really, Google and now social media we're expanding into, and podcasts, more branding. But you really have to trust other people. You can't just say, I have to do everything. We were taking intake calls at, 2 a.m. It was crazy. So investing in some employees helped with the growth.
Would you, if you had to, start over, what would be the first things that you would do if you had to like start from scratch?
If I had to start from scratch, I probably would have bowed out and let William and David do it all. Just because, in all honesty, there are significant challenges when you work with your spouse. For some reason, I couldn't bring myself to let go, and we overcame. We're stronger. We saw it through. But looking back, I might have taken, a back seat, or maybe just been an employee of theirs. I don't know if you want to air this, but
sure.
Other than that,
talk to me about those challenges. What the challenges of being in a being in a marriage and working together.
Right. So, and I hear this not just from attorneys that work together. It could be, two hairdressers, but you do things differently. And when you're co-owners, you might not like the way somebody does something, but you can't tell them off because you are going to sleep with them that night. So it carries through. It is pervasive in your entire life. If we had a work disagreement, I'd still be angry back here with the kids. It's not, you have to be very strong. We probably should have gotten some type of coaching to go through that. We just sort of navigated, but thank God for William Harrow, because he was like a buffer and he's so diplomatic. So if it were just David and me, I don't know that this firm would have survived.
So there was a lot of mediation, I guess, between three people. I guess three people is always good in terms of like a partnership, because when it's 50-50, that you're right. It's a lot harder. But when there's three, it's all like, all right, well, what do the three of us think? And then you can kinda.
And when you have two spouses who, we are very different lawyers. Like, I always preferred negotiating and I don't want to say coddling my client, but I have clients that come back 3-4 times. Like, I am a very empathetic person with them. And then David was about, he loves the fight. He loves to go to trial. That's not my preference. He wanted me to be like him and like William. But again, I didn't have that sort of training. I came from a defense job. It was very different. I didn't have the training to go jump out into court representing claimants because I had never done it. David had no patience to train me, and he would get annoyed that I had a lot of questions. But all three of us have different strengths, and that's why we have carved out these particular roles.
That's cool. So how is it different now?
So now that we're not handling cases, we've each held on to a couple old ones that, just don't require all that much work, or the client absolutely refuses to be reassigned. William is in charge of litigation, so somebody has to manage all of these lawyers that we've hired. So that's him. He's in the office, training them, answering questions. David runs the marketing. That is a full-time job. You cannot handle cases and handle all the marketing. And then I handle, I've designed the entire client journey. We used to have none. We would sign up a case, not speak to them, till maybe 3 weeks later. Now it is a step-by-step process. I also handle disgruntled clients or bad reviews, anything related to making the client happier. But, I couldn't manage all these lawyers. That's something, William is good at doing. I know nothing about marketing. David had like an economics background. He's really good with the numbers. So I think now we've all really settled into our roles. But again, this is 10 years into it.
Yeah, there's nothing like having gone through it to really understand. People can talk about, no, you really don't know unless you have gone through it. And through the pain what creates, it's what creates that experience. It's what creates the confidence in knowing that, we have an established business and it's ironclad because of the things that we went through, not because it was easy.
Right. It definitely wasn't easy. And people told us at the beginning, don't do it. Don't work together. We know attorneys that did and got divorced.
I'll tell you, I worked with my wife. The dynamics it was the issue, right? So I had my band, DAP band that I started in 2014. I brought her in. She had never sang before, right? So she had sang in like church and, more classical stuff, but she had never done this. And so I trained her. So she was like, I was like her mentor, you know what I mean? And then she grew as this performer, and, now she's in this spot where she's like, she owns it, right? She owns her. I remember there was a conversation we had a few years ago where, it just wasn't working. Like, it wasn't working. And I said, Shauna, it's because you don't own your voice. And she, what does that mean? What does that mean? I don't own my voice. I was like, I think you're trying to put so much tactic on it because you don't at the root cause, you don't believe that you're good enough to be on that stage. And when she finally let out all of it go and she owned her voice and she became that person, she like got it. She was like, I get it now. I hear what you're saying. I understand. And now she like gets invited to sing, and she's, I sold my half of the business, almost 2 years ago now. Yeah. And so then she became my boss, right?
That's so funny.
And I was like, this ain't gonna work. You know what I mean? Because
No, it is the dynamic.
It was the dynamic worked at that point, and not that I minded having her as my boss. It just didn't work because of all of that history, right? And I think I was already burnt out. So it was real conflicted.
Well, add to that dynamic that I have been doing this 8-9 years longer than David. So having him tell me what to do, and even having to ask him questions, the whole thing was sort of demeaning.
Yeah, for sure. I think and I'm telling everybody about this book right now because it's so good. It's called Leadership and Self-Deception.
Okay.
And the Cliff's Notes version of the book is basically you're either inside the box or you're outside the box. And when you're inside the box and you're having a conversation with somebody, it's very blaming. I'm putting all the blame on you. I'm pointing my finger. And then the story that I create within that box goes to reinforce the story of you being the problem, not necessarily me. And then when you're in the box, you're treating the person like they're an object and not like a person. But when you step out of the box, then you're starting to treat the person like they're a person with fears and dreams and hopes and the whole nine. And then the conversations could be the same, but when you're operating outside the box and you're treating the person like a person, then it's different. And it was that was such an eye-opening book for me. Cause like, man, how many times are we just like caught up in our own stories of like, well, that person is the problem.
Always.
And it's like, damn, you know what? I might be the problem.
Right.
And a lot of times I am.
It's me. Hi, I'm the problem.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, we had a conversation recently and I was like, I don't think you know what you did to it rocked my self-esteem. Like for a while I was like, man, I'm not a good lawyer. Like he says I'm not, like I am not. And to have that shaken when this was all I knew how to do, and I've been doing it since 1997. It was rough, but
yeah.
I have to say we overcame that, and now we're all managers. We're not practicing law really anymore. And
what was the thing that you could attribute to getting past all of that? And what were some of the things that you guys did, tactics and beliefs?
They say necessity is the mother of invention. Mm-hmm. I think we fell into this, each getting our own role because we had to. We could no longer manage all these employees, deal with the clients and their happiness, and handle cases. It became logistically impossible.
Right.
Because it's so time consuming litigating these cases. So.
It's fine.
Okay. I think David came up with a designation. You're good at this. You're good at this. Are you okay with this? And it has worked. It's too much for one person to do all of these roles.
100%. What do you think led to you guys getting out of that dynamic?
I wish I could say, we went to therapy. It was so helpful. We didn't do any of that. We just weathered the storm. I don't know, made a commitment that we're not going to let this break us. And if it really is going to get to that point, I will step aside. I never wanted to be like dependent on a man and just stay home. It's just not in my constitution. So I wanted to at least remain part of this in some capacity. And, you know, I've found my role.
That's cool. And so the relationship is better as a result.
I would say so. Yeah. I hope David feels the same, but there's just more peace.
Yeah. And that's cool. That's, you know, I love you guys. I think y'all are great. The business runs really well, and just the growth that I've seen has been tremendous. It's a testament to, you know, trusting the process and really, you know, becoming the owners of the company rather than the technicians, you know, which is a beautiful place to be.
Yeah, and we've got great attorneys now, you know, doing the work. So good support staff. I mean, it has been amazing to watch, and I do credit Luis Scott for the growth. I mean, we didn't know what we were doing to build a business. We're lawyers. We don't go to business school. So.
Sure. So talk to me. I love talking about customer journey, and I really do love, like, you know, what does that mean to you, and how did you implement that into your business?
Yeah, so I always try to, when I am explaining what is the customer journey to the staff, because you want everybody to buy into that, I say to them, just think for a minute if your mom or your brother had a work accident and you are referring them to someone. You want that person to be nice on the phone, to take their calls, to spend time, just really be empathetic, because that's what I think we were lacking before. It was me, David, and Will with all these cases, and at that time it was before COVID. We had to be at all these events live, so one mediation would take up hours of your day. You didn't have time to call people back, and that's when you get terminated by a client. The most common reason that clients will fire their attorneys and hire somebody else is because you're not calling them back. So I harp on that with the staff. Like, I don't care what you're doing, at least text them back, call them back, email. There's just really no excuse at this point in where we are in society with smartphones. Like, you can send a text. So we want the client, from the minute they're calling the intake team, to feel very, you know, I'm going to trust these people. And how do we build the trust? Our intake team is promising that someone on the legal team is going to call you within 24 hours. So I do keep metrics, and I see who's calling people when, and if they're not, you know, they have to hear from me, because you have to follow through on the initial promise.
Where are you guys keeping those numbers?
So we use a system, it's called FileVine, and whomever makes that first call, it's usually a legal assistant, she or he has to document the date, the contents of the conversation, and then the attorney has to then call. They're really supposed to do it within 72 hours, but sometimes they're a little longer, and sometimes we get fired because nobody called within what we promised. So it's really all about fulfilling that initial promise. That sets the tone. What's
the KPI for that? Like, is it the amount of time, or?
It's very difficult to measure. A really lofty KPI would be like, well, let's see how many of Armando's clients are actually referring their friends. But it's hard to say. Is that because we gave them a lot of communication? Is it because they loved our closing gifts? We give out really cool beach towels at the end when they're getting their check. It's like a giant beach towel that looks like a check, and it
that's
says
cool.
Work injury rights on it. You know, it's hard to say what keeps the clients coming back.
But you guys have those specific touch points written.
Yes, there's an initial call, there's 21-day contact, there's constant videos that are going out to them saying, you know, this is what a deposition is, this is what a mediation is. They are bombarded with communication to the point where some have said, like, slow the rolls, it's annoying. I would rather err on the side of too much communication.
Yeah, for sure. I think so. I think, you know, and we had that problem too, when we weren't communicating enough, people just go, well, what am I paying for? What's going on? But then we did over deliver. But to your point, like, at least they know that we're working in the background.
Yeah.
You know, we're letting you know, hey, these things are happening.
Right. Somebody's working on your case, and I can check that because of this system FileVine. I see all their notes. I listen to recorded calls. It's literally like doing customer service, but for a law firm.
Talk to me about, and because a lot of business owners listen to this show, and they might be in that season of letting go and going, hey, I'm stepping out of the seat. For instance, I'm stepping out of this seat, right? As you guys can tell, right? I'm bringing Wilson in, but I want to make sure that like the handoff is nice and seamless. How are you doing that? Like, how are you like letting go? And at what point do you go, okay, I'm trusting my staff now. They're ready.
So the key to letting go was having a really good training program. You don't just hire people and throw them to the wolves, which is how David learned and William at their firm. Their boss was like, here are the cases, go. And they liked that. That's how we learned. I am not of that. I don't believe in that anymore. That might have worked like when we were kids or whatever, but I am all about having a written out onboarding process. So for the lawyers, William is training them. They're following seasoned lawyers around, seeing how we do things, and only then do we trust them to handle these cases. Because at the end of the day, it's work injury rights reputation.
Sure.
They're not getting personal reviews. It's our reviews that we have to handle. So whether it is the intake person, whether it's a virtual agent in Honduras who's answering calls as a receptionist, there is a well thought out and written onboarding process, almost like a script, like what they have to say. I have a whole list of things that clients might ask legal assistance, and they can refer to it so they know how to answer.
And how do you so at what point do you guys have it planned out that you're like, okay, we're going to let go in 3 weeks, or does it depend on the person?
It depends on the person. I mean, I didn't have as much hardship handing off because I was very stressed out handling all these cases and being a mom and the kids' activities and my dad. Like, I was like, please take my cases, because I was part of the hiring of these people. I knew they were experienced, but how did we get them to do it our way? Like, William spent a lot of time with them. They constantly, it's like an open door policy. They're always asking David questions, always asking William. We're always all messaging in a group chat. We have meetings. It would vary person to person, but it's obviously easier to trust a legal assistant, right?
Right.
Or somebody that's doing scheduling than an attorney, because the attorneys are the one that are bringing in the revenue. It was some trial and error. Some people that wowed us at interviews turned out to be duds. And that's part of this that I don't like about being a business owner. I hate letting people go. So I don't do it. We let Monica or whoever else.
Oh, is that who does it?
Yeah, I can't do it.
Yeah, Will I call him the Velvet Hammer, because I'm all like, hey, so and so's got to go. They can't.
Yeah, I don't like it. I'm too sensitive.
It's hard. It's hard. Although it is becoming a little easier now because we're putting KPIs in place and because we're putting measurements. So like every week you're like coming up short. So either you don't know what you're doing, but we can't keep you around.
So that's easy for William to measure with the attorneys. They have certain attorneys' fees they're supposed to generate, and you're absolutely right. Luckily, we've never had anyone who didn't meet those at a certain point. It took a little while. I mean, and we've personally had to take hits. Like, we're paying all these people. We personally had to cut back, but you got to ride through the storms.
Yeah, it's a lot of storms. Very cool. So how do they find you? How do they look for you? How do they follow you?
They can follow us on Instagram. We are Work Injury Rights. Same thing on TikTok. We're on Facebook, Work Injury Rights. Our website is www.workinjuryrights.com. Feel free to email me, Stacey, Stacey, at workinjuryrights.com, and our number 954-324-2667.
And that's if you get hurt in an accident, but at work here in South Florida or anywhere in Florida. But specifically you, because I know you've got a podcast coming out and, you know, you're putting out content under the Success of a Hot Mess.
Success of a Hot Mess is going to be my podcast. It's not all law related. We talk about some fun stuff, but if you or you know anyone who's been injured at a job in Florida, could be anywhere in Florida, you call work injury rights, because that's all we do, work injuries.
Very cool. Stacey, thank you so much for being on the show.
You're welcome, Armando. Thanks for having me.
Yep. And that was Spaghetti on the Wall, brought to you by LeDuc Entertainment. For all of your digital marketing needs, social media, podcasting, videos, we got you. Keep watching. We'll see y'all next time.